es abogada, conoce el andar. Como inmigrante sabe lo que es luchar. Te guía en el proceso sin titubear. Tus sueños juntos van a despegar. Inmigrando con Kathia, luz en el camino. Una amiga, un faro, un buen destino. Esperanza y fuerza en cada paso con optimismo.
Hello and welcome to Immigration USA with Kathia. My name is Kathia Quiros. I am an immigration lawyer in Las Vegas, Nevada. And today we're going to talk about the change in policy where ICE has decided that they're not only going to go after any and every immigrant that is undocumented in the United States, but they're also go after the employers who employ undocumented immigrants. Now, you probably are asking, so why would they go after employers when they don't have any obligation to know if they are undocumented or not? And you're right. This is what is worrisome for many business people in the United States. A businessman in the United States, when they decide that they're going to hire employees, it's obliged to comply with the policies of the United States on how to hire someone. When you own a business and you decide to hire an employee, you have to follow the I-9 guidelines. What is an I-9? An I-9, it's a document where the employee provides their information about how is that they are allowed to work in the United States. They're either a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident, or they have an employment authorization, or they have a work visa, or they have some kind of special status, such as refugee or asylee. And in those cases, they may not have an employment authorization or a visa in their passports, but they have a document that allows them to work. So as you can see, it's not just as easy to prove that you're entitled to work in the United States, because there are many different ways to show that you're eligible to work in the United States. But anyways, the government says you have to show that you are able to work. You have to fill this form called I-9. Once the employee fills out the I-9, then the employer has the obligation to check for the documents that allow this person to work. So the employers, business owner, it's no ICE, right? They are not experts. They don't know when a document is valid or it's not valid. They just know what the government is telling them to do. So if you are a U.S. citizen, you have to show your ID and evidence of U.S. citizenship, your passport or your birth certificate. If you are a legal permanent resident, then you show your ID and your green card. If you have an employment authorization, and so on and so forth. So once you have provided those documents to the employer, when the employee shows the documents, the employer has to record that information, and then he can allow this person to start working for the business. That is how it's supposed to work, and that's what the employer needs to do, and that's the end of the story. As long as the employer has no idea that the person is not authorized to work in the United States, the employer is not doing anything wrong. The problem starts when the employer, the business owner, knows that the person they're hiring is undocumented. At that moment, then we have a crime, because it is a crime to employ anyone knowing that that person is undocumented. What the government is saying today is we're going to go after employers, after business owners that know that they are hiring undocumented individuals. And how are they going to do that? Well, first, you have to know that now that they're going to have more resources and more employees, they're going to be able to do more investigations of this type. And how do they start these investigations? Well, they have their ways, but first there's got to be some type of tip that at some business, the people who are at the business the owners of the business know that the people working there are undocumented. Sometimes the ICE officers will investigate to the point where they even send someone to work there to find out if that's true or not. Other times, the government does a silent audit, an I-9 audit. And what is an I-9 audit? It's when they sent a letter to the business and they say, we would like to review all the I-9 forms of all the people that work for you for the past 3 years. Then the employer submits all that information to ICE, and they review everything and they check if the amount of undocumented people is very high. Then they start looking at if that business owner knew that these people were undocumented or not. And that's how the investigations start. The government is targeting right now big businesses, big companies, especially in areas where there is a huge, big immigrant population. Now, as long as the employer has no constructive knowledge that the people that are working for them are undocumented, that employer is not doing anything wrong. They are just doing what the government says. When the employer knows that the person is undocumented and allows that person to work, that's when the employer is in trouble. And the trouble is substantial. Not only criminal charges for hiring somebody that is undocumented, but only big, big, big penalties. So beware. Now, what happens in this case? Well, the government, the interim director of USCIS was in an interview with CBS telling us that they're going to go after any and every undocumented person in the United States, but they're also going to go after employers. So what does that mean? Well, that means that there are going to be more investigations, especially in big businesses with a lot of employees, and that they're going to try to find employers who are committing crimes, and in order to go after them. Litigation involves time, involves a lot of expenses. So it's not going to be good for the economy in any of our cities or in any of our states, especially because most of the places where this is happening, where the immigrant population is very high, are industries where Americans don't want to work because the work it's really hard and the pay is very little. So that's what's going on. Now, let's see it from the other side of the spectrum, which is what happens to these employees. Employees in the United States, good employees, hardworking employees, are taking these jobs that Americans don't want to do because they are undocumented and they need a job and they need to support their family. So they're willing to do whatever it takes to earn some kind of money. What happens when these people are detained by ICE as part of their investigation? When ICE starts one of these investigations and they try to go after an employer, the worst part is not what happens to the employer, because the employer is normally a person with papers, a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident, and they have money, they have the business, right? But what happens with the employee, with the person who was working there? Well, if the government notifies the employer that they're doing this I-9 audit, the employer has the chance to go to the employee and say, look, I've got this letter that says that they cannot find your legal papers. So you have 3 or 5 days to prove that you are legal in the United States. Otherwise, I can't have you here. Now, if the person is undocumented, most likely on that same day, the person will resign or will never show up again, because now he is aware that ICE is going after him or her. Sometimes ICE is not going to send the letter saying this person doesn't have papers. ICE is just going to show up at the place of employment. And what happens when ICE just shows up? Then that's when we see these raids where they arrive with an order from a judge allowing them to enter the work site, and they start asking and detaining everybody who doesn't have legal papers, and sometimes people who do have legal papers but not have them with them at the moment, or cannot prove to the satisfaction of the ICE officers that they are legally in the United States. So what can we do if we are an employee and we are in these circumstances? If you're a US citizen, a legal permanent resident, or you have an employment authorization that is valid because you have a case pending, or you've been approved some type of relief like DACA, TPS, or asylum, in those cases, the best thing to do is to go through the hard moment of allowing ICE to detain you, because if you fight your detention, you're going to be in a much worse situation. So the best thing to do is to allow them to detain you, take you to the detention center, and at the detention center, wait for them to review your alien number, to review your documents so they can let you go, because they will let you go if you're a US citizen or a US permanent resident, or you have a valid employment authorization. Now, if you don't have any of these things, then you have to separate that group of undocumented individuals in two big groups. One, the ones who have an order of deportations, the ones who have re-entered after an order of deportation, or the ones who have been here in the United States for less than 2 years. Those people are in the worst situation, because if they are detained by ICE, they will not be allowed to bail out, and they will not be allowed to see a judge. They will be detained and they will be deported as fast as ICE can deport this person. Now, if the person is here undocumented but has no order of deportation, has been here for more than 2 years, then that person shouldn't be subject to immediate deportation. That person has the right to say, I want to see a judge, I want to speak with my lawyer, I am not signing any document, this is my name, and I'm not going to talk anymore. And if you do that, then they might detain you, but you will have the chance to apply for bail, or to ask for bail to ICE and to an immigration judge. You will have the right to have a deportation process. And in your deportation process, you will have to let a judge decide if you can stay or not, if you can apply for cancellation of removal. So it is really important to see the harsh consequences of working undocumented in the United States. But it's also important to know that not everybody that will be detained in these rates will be deported, because some of them do have rights, and they need to learn these rights so they can request them and enforce them. If you don't, if ICE comes to you and says, oh, if you sign this document, you're going to be out of jail, we're going to send you back to your country, and you signed it, then you're losing all your only chance to fight for your for your goal of remaining in the United States. So this is what's going on right now in all this new world of raids and deportations. A lot of people are good good people who are honest and working, and their only mistake was to come to this country because there were jobs in this country. People wouldn't come if there wouldn't be opportunities, and this country has keeps growing and keeps improving because there is cheap labor, right? And the cheap labor comes from the immigrant communities. So it's easy to say deport them all when when you don't know how all these businesses are going to survive if they deport them all, when you don't realize that a lot of businesses in the United States that are essential to the economy rely on the hands of immigrant workers. So now that I told you everything that is going on, now if you have questions, please do them now, and I will try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Let me see if I have any questions here. Please do them in English. These, if you want to see me in Spanish, I have a daily show called Inmigrando con Katia. I am doing this in English for my English speaking community. How much does the fee for the refugee travel document cost? You will have to go to the USCIS website and type I-131, and that's how you can see the fee. I believe it's between $500 and $600, but I don't know it by heart. If a person has felonies, can that person have papers? Well, it depends, because many immigrants, most of us, think that a felony is any crime, and it's not. A felony, it's a very serious crime where the sentence that this person received is greater than 1 year. Um, a felony, it's also a crime related to fraud that where the loss is more than $10,000. A felony is also any crime related to fake documents. So it depends. Nobody can answer that question without seeing the criminal record, the court dispositions. Let me see. I am looking for questions in English, please. Can I petition for my parents as a U.S. citizen if I get married to petition for my husband too? Yes, of course. You can file a petition for mom, for dad, for stepmom, for stepdad, and for your husband. No problem. Is it normal to get interview notices so quickly in 2 months from PD? Yes, unfortunately, yes. What is my husband has deferred action, but he has been deported in the past? Is he in danger? Yes, he is. Right now, the deferred action protects him from deportation, right? But let's say he commits a crime and he is detained for that crime, then they may cancel his deferred action just to deport him. So if he doesn't get in any trouble, then he's fine. But if there is any issues, then he may end up deported. Let me see. Green card holders by mistake register to vote, then cancel the registration. This is a problem. It is a problem. It is a problem that for many years we've been able to explain, and it's been waived. Right now, I wouldn't probably do anything with it because the 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 policies now are so much harsher. So when I understand what this person is going through, I've seen this case so many times. I think before that person considers applying for naturalization or traveling outside the United States, it would be very important to talk to a lawyer. How long the medical exam expires? 2 years. If I petition for my parents as U.S. citizen, is it faster if my parents have withholding of removal? No, it's not faster. If your parents have withholding of removal, it means they have an order of deportation that hasn't been executed because the government has given them a withholding of that order of removal. That person, if that person is eligible to ask for a green card, they have to go first to the court, terminate the deportation process, and then go to USCIS. So they definitely need a lawyer. How long is it taking for work permit after biometrics appointments? Married to U.S. citizen, came with visa, 7 to 8 months. My case was administratively closed. I'm waiting on the 601. Can they open my case? Yes, they can open your case. You, in fact, should be checking with the EOIR website so that to see if they are reopening. Because if you haven't updated your address with EOIR, it's possible for that the court will notify you and you won't even know. Let me see. Can my boss do a petition for me? If you're undocumented, no. If you are working legally, yes. So it depends on what is your situation. The best advice is to have your employer if you are legally in the United States, if you are working legally, you may be DACA, TPS, but if you are working legally, then have your employer talk to a business immigration lawyer to see if they can work on a work visa for you. Well, guys, I truly appreciate you being here with me today. I hope that you learned something new every day. And if you're interested in the field of immigration, please share this information, subscribe, help me spread the word. Information is key to improve the lives of immigrants in the United States. Thank you.
Inmigrando con Kathia.